All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first show of workforce development this morning. This might be, Shari, I'm sorry, I know we just did this 6 months ago, but this might be my favorite talk I've ever done. I have three just fabulous rock stars here with me on the stage today. Today's conversation is a focus on supply issues with human resources. Forecasters for growth in the microelectronics industry is expecting close to $1 trillion of growth by 2030. That's only 8 years from now. So if we think about students that are leaving high school and going through school, we've got 4 years, it's that whole kind of trail effect. And I want to talk today, where do we think that talent is going to come from? And I really would love to get advice from the three of you on how we can do a better job of attracting the next generation to our industry. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to the conversation today. Tara, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently a graduate student at the University of Texas in Austin, and there I'm pursuing a double master's in Energy and Earth Resources, which is an interdisciplinary geosciences program, as well as public affairs. And in my undergrad, I did mathematics and statistics. And I'm currently interested in terms of academics and possibly soil science, as well as agriculture, food security, and sustainability. But I also intern right now for Tokyo Electron, or TEL, in Austin.
We're going to get into it in a little bit, but you're also part of the Road Trip Nation team,
Yes,
right?
yes. I recently participated in PBS's Road Trip Nation their docu-series, and so that will be coming out within the next year, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Great. Raj, I think you're next in our slides, so I'm going to bounce over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've got going on, and most importantly, tell us about your running that you're doing.
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Raj. I am an incoming student at Stanford University, and I got connected with Semi through High Tech U, and so the High Tech U program is pictured there. I met Joe Stakunas and I met Bryson there, which was an awesome experience. So my background is currently I have an internship at Northrop Grumman for software engineering. I'm interested in computer science and software engineering. And I also started a company. I have a startup where we're building portable generators that take the power of a stream and use it to charge mobile devices. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. And about running, I am an avid runner. I've been running almost daily for 6 years. And I just recently finished my first marathon, which I'm super excited about. So I love to run. That's my thing. If anyone wants to talk about running, I'm your guy.
All right, Oindree, tell us about yourself.
Yes, of course. My name is Oindree Chatterjee, and I am a rising high school senior at Fremont High School, which is located in the Bay Area. Now, many high schoolers usually take their classes at their local school from grades 9 through 12. However, I realized that I wanted to take more advanced math courses and programming classes that are unfortunately not offered at my high school. And so instead, I joined the middle college program, where I take all of my high school classes at a local community college. And then aside from my education, I'm currently a summer intern at Accenture in the business and technology fields, where I'm learning about consulting and using design thinking to build products. And additionally, I am a huge robotics enthusiast. I have served as the team captain of my robotics team for 2 years, and this year I'm actually serving as the community impact lead of my entire robotics organization, because I realized that not only do I enjoy the technical aspect of robotics, but I also enjoy the business and marketing aspect, and really connecting with younger students and getting them involved in STEM activities before they reach high school. And that leads me to my final point, that I am a huge advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last year, I actually started a podcast called The STEM Corner, and it is sponsored by SEMI, and I'll talk more about that in a bit.
I told you I have rock stars with me today. All right, Tara, let's talk about your background and how you got to TEL through your studies, even though they aren't necessarily revolved around microelectronics.
Yes, absolutely. So my undergrad was in math and stats, and so that's definitely helping me at the position I'm at now at TEL. But right in my grad program, still, it's kind of tangential. There's some data science, but pretty much policy and environmental science. But both my parents are in the semiconductor industry, so that has definitely informed the choices I've made throughout my life and where I'm working at now. And I've always been STEM oriented, hence my academic or my majors. But when I was younger, I guess when you're younger, you want some independence, and sometimes that's being a little rebellious from your parents and what advice they give. And so my mom, she loves what she does. She's very good at what she does, and she's very enthusiastic about the job she has. And so she would always talk to my brother and I about everything that she was doing, and 300 nanometer, IoT, all these words. And growing up, it was always fun to hear, but it was also kind of like, I get it, Mom, I know. And so I was thinking, I'm gonna branch out, and in undergrad, I'm gonna do something for me. I'm gonna kind of prove that I can do something else, if that makes sense, and distance myself. But frankly, I had a lot of difficulty finding an internship. I didn't. So I did study abroad one summer, and then the summer after, I put in dozens of applications and I got nothing back. And so that was really hard for me. But it kept going throughout school. The pandemic hit, which made internships a little more tough too. But finally, in my senior year, or the summer before I started my grad program, earlier in the spring, I said, Mom, you've always offered to help, and I know I've said, I kind of want to do this on my own, but, kind of tail between my legs. It's hard, and I haven't been successful, so I need your help, please. And so she was very kind. Since I was coming to the Austin area, University of Texas, she had a work friend at TEL, Joe Napolitano, and she sent him my resume, and then he shuffled it to the right team within the company for my, my educational skills are right towards math and stats and comp sci. So I interviewed there, and I landed a position where I have been able to implement some of my learnings as well as learn a ton more. And I really loved it. And so, yes, it's within the semiconductor industry, but I'm not exactly working on the equipment that I guess is what we know the industry as. And so it's a technical position, but it's different from how we classically view, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's actually a really important part of this conversation is that we've experienced at career fairs when students or even veterans walk up to our booths and they see semiconductor, they want to walk away because they don't understand it. So I think we have to get more messaging out about the different jobs within the industry, and it's not just being an engineer. So. Raj, your bio, you talked a little bit about semi-high-tech U. Can you tell us about your experience and how that sparked an interest for you in semiconductors?
Yes, absolutely. So Semi-High-Tech U, I participated in 2019, and it was hosted at Nordson in my hometown of Carlsbad, California, which is in San Diego. And it was a 3-day program where hosted by Semi and Nordson, where we were led by industry leaders and employees of Nordson in some different activities to get introduced to the semiconductor industry. So some of the activities included like some mock wafering, some like binary logic explorations, and then one day we took a bus down to a local college and made battle bots and then had a tournament. So it balanced like both like educational things and engaging things. The end of the High-Tech U program, there was a like a resume building workshop, and that was followed by mock interviews with employees of Nordson. And all of that together was really quite a great experience. Like between those 3 days, like yes, I had to skip school for 3 days, but I met a lot of awesome students that were interested in semiconductors and a lot of awesome people at Nordson who were really engaging and helpful with showing me a little bit about the industry. So that was really my first introduction to the semiconductor industry.
So I'm curious, in our discussion last night at dinner, you talked about being a connector and some of the things you do on LinkedIn. Do you feel like you got some of that skill from High Tech U, or was that something you already knew? Or tell me a little bit about the connecting that you do.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish that I was more into networking and stuff during High Tech U, because I definitely started to network a lot after I got engaged with my startup and I founded that in January 2020. That certainly was the push for me to start really networking. But High Tech U kind of gave the groundwork, I guess, for the skill, because you met a lot of people. And you had to, it was a simulation of real life and real job hunting, so.
Oindree, why don't you tell us about your High Tech U experience?
Right. Like Raj, every single activity that I did in SEMI's High Tech U program has inspired me in one way or another. However, two of their activities in particular really did stand out to me. The first one was the SumoBot activity, building my robot out of cardboard, a circuit board, batteries, and 2 servos, and controlling it from my cell phone for the first time ever made me feel really satisfied. I realized that maybe I am capable of robotics and programming, and that activity influenced me to try out and later join my robotics team. In addition to the SumoBot activity, the career exploration activity also stood out to me. You know, many students, when they think of STEM, they understand it as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But SEMI's program showed me that STEM is such a huge industry. Let's take a really popular major nowadays, computer science. Yes, you can do software engineering, but you can also do product management, become a business analyst, do UI UX design. There's so much opportunity out there, and that is what SEMI's program showed me. And that is also why I'm super interested in the tech and engineering fields.
I can see your energy. It's awesome. All right, Tara. I think we all know the answer to this question, but I'm going to toss it over to you. Being in college right now, do you feel the semiconductor industry has a good campus presence?
No. So in my experience at my undergrad and my graduate school now, there hasn't been a lot of campus presence. And granted, I am in one of those majors or fields that are typically not associated with the industry as we see on the outside, so that may be one reason, but I think that also points out the fact that recruitment is maybe a little too targeted, and it could broaden because, I haven't seen any companies come on campus for any of the job fairs that I've seen or any of the workshops and sponsorships that companies tend to do.
Thank you. Okay, Raj, kind of a similar question for you. As a student that's just transitioning to Stanford, what mechanisms do you think would be effective for outreach to pre-college students regarding our industry?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll start by just echoing what Tara said, is as I go to Stanford, I would love to see semiconductor companies on campus. So please, I would love to see people in this audience, other companies to be on campus at recruiting events for sure. Before college, during high school, I think that the most important thing is to meet students where they are. It's hard to convince a student to go to an event, even SEMICON is just hard because they're going to something, they're skipping out on something else. Instead, students who are interested in STEM do a lot of similar things. So one of the things, as Oindree mentioned, is robotics. A lot of STEM-inclined students participate in robotics, and specifically, I know in San Diego, Qualcomm has done an excellent job about doing outreach through FIRST Robotics. At the competitions, they have this big booth, and they give away free t-shirts, so people come to the booths, they can get the t-shirt, and then they tell you about why they need your talent at Qualcomm and what they're working on, and that's been very, very effective. So getting involved with robotics programs, other sort of STEM programs. And the other point I would make about meeting students where they are is social media. One thing that I like to see is clips about how things work. As just somebody who's interested in engineering, I love to see little behind the scenes clips about manufacturing, or about, and I never see it about semiconductors, you know? So I would love to see more like, you know, little TikToks or Instagrams of like 60-second videos of how the semiconductors are manufactured or a behind the scenes look. That would be really engaging to me, and I feel like that social media presence is lacking. So that's what I recommend for outreach.
Okay, industry, we hear them loud and clear. We've got some work to do, right? Oindree, as we look at even younger students for our programs, can you speak to how you've been able to use your role with the community impact lead in robotics to do some of the things we're talking about?
Right. I'm actually leading a long-term, brand new community impact project where I'm developing a new team in my robotics organization that is working to curate STEAM curriculums. And STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And we're doing this in grades level 3, 4, and 5 to introduce students in our community to STEM before they even reach high school. And because I have such a supportive network of people here at SEMI, I'm able to establish this wonderful partnership between SEMI High Tech U and my high school's robotics organization. So High Tech U has actually been able to provide my robotics organization with the resources like STEM kits to take the community impact project forward in our community and make it sustainable for many years to come, even after I graduate high school.
Nice. Let's jump over to your podcast we see behind you there. Why don't you tell us about it? Why did you create it? What is its purpose?
Right. So I created the STEM Corner podcast when I realized that low-income and minority students are receiving even less access to STEM opportunities over the pandemic. I mean, how are students supposed to gain interest in the semiconductor and STEM industries if they've never had any memorable experiences to look back on in the first place? I also noticed that High Tech U programs came to a pause, and I wanted to provide other interested individuals like me with more exposure to career opportunities in STEM. So that is when I went back to the SEMI Foundation and started volunteering under the guidance of our executive director and program manager at SEMI. And I started the STEM Corner podcast, which is sponsored by them, to provide these curious individuals and minorities with more exposure to the opportunities that lie in STEM.
I think it's really paying off, Shari. Yeah, I see it. Okay. So, and then the last one on your podcast here is, how's your podcast inspired you to make a change within your own community?
Right. So every single podcast episode that I have filmed has inspired me in one way or another. However, one of my favorite episodes that I have filmed has got to be with the executive director at SEMI, Shari, when she stressed the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in her workforce. Now, at the time of filming, the concept of DEI sounded very foreign to me, as I had never heard about it in a school setting before. But learning about diversity, equity, and inclusion from Shari made me want to implement this concept into my robotics team's outreach as the team captain. Holding events and mentoring Girls Who Code groups, gender-neutral scout troops, and low-income schools has provided students in my community with more exposure to STEM before they reach high school. You know, the concept of DEI is powerful, and I understand why many companies try to embody diversity, equity, and inclusion in their workforces. But that actually led to one question of mine. Why have I never heard of DEI in a school setting? Right? If the semiconductor industry and other companies that are working in tech want to make a difference, they need to target their outreach towards the next generation of entrepreneurs, towards the next generation of engineers, and towards the next generation of people working in tech. And that is why I took the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I learned from my podcast, and decided to implement it into my robotics community, because that's a start.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. I hope that we can get scheduled on your podcast to do a recap of this. All right, Tara, now we're going to talk about Road Trip Nation.
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite projects with SEMI. You're a part of it. And this will be the first time in the history of semiconductor industry that we've had a PBS documentary that highlights our industry. So to me, it's one of those things I'll look back and be like, wow, that was so cool. Tell us about your experience. What's it been like? What have you learned?
So I'll explain a little bit about it. Well, I'll first off say that it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, genuinely. And so there was an application process. I and 2 other subjects of the documentary were selected. Their names are Alyssa and Marcus. And so we met together for training and were given kind of the whole gist of what the road trip would entail. And so we would be driving from San Diego or South California all the way up along the coast to Portland, Oregon, and interviewing leaders within the semiconductor industry along the way, and these interviews would be filmed and then, included in the documentary. And the show has an aim of course, highlighting the industry and spreading awareness about it, but also showing the leaders' stories, and so that perhaps younger generations, or the younger generation and young professionals, can relate in a more personal way to people within the industry and show that they may have challenges in their life that emulate those that the leaders had, and so understanding ways that they overcame it can help them or inform their career path. And so, in terms of the actual road trip, it was great. Alyssa and Marcus and we clicked really well. They're wonderful people, and we will stay in contact for a lifetime because we just had so much fun, as well as the cast and crew. Their names are Chelsea Walsh, Chandler Jenkins, and Christian Gronwald. They were wonderful, very helpful, and super fun. And in terms of the actual content of the documentary, the interviews, they were amazing. I was really impressed with how open a lot of the leaders were and vulnerable in a sense of sharing what were the obstacles along the way that they had to overcome, or kind of really decide and say, no, I can't do this, so I'm going to change and do something else. And I think one of the most important things I took away from all the interviews is basically their ending piece of advice they gave us, and that is the importance of having a mentor, and that being a work-specific mentor, as they, being at work, will understand your challenges, specifically whether it's, very technical or whether it's kind of work, political type of stuff. And then also, because they are your mentor, having more of that personal relationship with you, and so helping you in that sense.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Mentorships are extremely important. We talked about that as well. Raj, I'm going to jump over to you. What excites you as you think about your career path? What do you care about when it comes to terms of work? And what drives you, or where do you think you see yourself in a few years?
Cool, 3 questions. So I'm really excited by, I want to work on technology that's making an impact. That's really what drives me. And so when I'm joining a company, when I'm choosing what I want to work on, or even when I was starting my own company, one of the things at the forefront of my mind was the impact, like the social impact that I'm making, and also just like the tangible impact. Like, honestly, it's like, I call it the cool test. Like, is what I'm working on cool, Like, am I really interested in it? Because if it's not interesting to me, then I can't get excited about it. I'm not going to be interested in it. And so for my undergrad, my internships, my strategy is to gain experience in a lot of different industries. So this summer, I'm at Northrop Grumman doing software engineering, and that's defense contracting. Next summer, I'm already booked. Katie mention this. Here you go.
I was trying to steal him last night for next summer's internship, and he says, I'm already booked.
Yeah, so next summer, I'm already booked for Amazon software engineering internship. And in the future, I just want to gain experience in different industries, different jobs. In the future, I would love to work in the semiconductor industry as well. And that's the way that I'm approaching it, because I just want to see what works and what I am the most interested in. And what I'm working on now is great. What I'm working on next summer, I'm sure it'll be great. And it's just about what's the right fit for me and for my work. So I'm excited by the companies that I'm joining and what they're working on and getting a diverse set of experiences.
We hope to see you here next July, and you can make your rounds and decide on who's the best internship to help.
Of course, yes.
All right. Tara, same kind of question for you. What's important to you in joining a company, and eventually, so as an intern, and then of course eventually as an employee?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would say I'm in a different position now that I'm in grad school and will be leaving soon in a couple years. And frankly, pay is really important to me because, I have to live. It costs money. And so having a paid internship was my number one priority, which my mother helped me with, and Tel definitely helped me with too. And I think that is a very similar, interest that other recent grads will have as well, because frankly, a lot of students will come out with loans or having student debt, and it could be a sad perspective, but it's necessary at the end of the day. Is that if you are going to be committing your time to a company and being productive and working hard, then you want to also know that the company values you, of course individually, but also physically and monetarily.
Oindree, do you have some thoughts on this? What do you think is going to grab you to want to work at a company?
Yeah, so right now, as a high schooler, I think it's important that I'm just receiving exposure to other companies and even just getting to visit their offices and see how actual workers interact with each other and what they do is amazing, because I feel like in high school, I'm kind of living in this little bubble and I don't really understand what the real world is like. But once you get out of that bubble and you go and you actually work in these companies and you intern, you have this experience like no other, and you gain new interests that you never even knew you had. So that's what's really important to me in an internship that I have, that I'm learning new things and I'm also being exposed to new ideas and surroundings.
So we haven't touched on what sustainability means to the three of you, but I know it's a hot topic. Does anybody want to chime in on that one?
Sure, I can go ahead. So sustainability, I guess classically, right, it has three parts of environmental, social, and economic. And I personally would be quite interested in the environmental part as well as the social. But I think within the industry, it's important that companies work on decarbonization efforts and net zero, which has become increasingly more, or I guess it's been given increasing attention in the last few years with a lot of companies setting goals and publicly setting goals, that is. And also, because of the technology within the industry, there's a lot of resource extraction as well as chemical use, so ensuring that your carbon footprint is low as well as any environmental damage, and really checking that and making sure there's no loopholes or leaks, just physically, or something like, oh, well, it was just negligent and it was a one-time thing, that type of deal, because I think that happens a lot in that companies portray themselves outwardly. It's kind of called, I forgot the term, but
Greenwashing?
Greenwashing, thank you, exactly, yeah, greenwashing, where they project themselves as being environmentally sustainable. And so when these situations do happen, they're able to say, oh, well, we did have these goals, and so this was just an accident or things like that. And so I think it's important that we work to make sure there's less accidents, at the fab and things like that. But then also socially, in terms of sustainability, is really hitting at what Oindree said earlier, is DEI, and ensuring that diversity or companies are diverse, and that means both horizontally and vertically. And we want to see women throughout the company, right? We don't want to be 50-50, but it's only the HR department that has a lot of women, or it's only the marketing department that has a lot of women, right? We want to see women in all fields within the industry, as well as vertically as in executive positions and positions of management. And then I think one thing too for social sustainability and diversity is really addressing the fact that we have a lot of representation in the industry of a certain minority, that being Asians, and so we can't really rely on that to show that we're diverse, is that when we are having these diversity conversations, we frankly mean Black people and Latin people, and ensuring that we're providing them equal opportunity and extra support to be successful within the industry.
Nicely said. Good job. All right, one last question because we're about to wrap up here. Mentorship. What role has someone played in your life that has really been impactful? And I'd like to ask each one of you this question. So Raj, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so I'll first just start by shouting out my parents, of course. They're always there. If I ever have any questions, they're usually the first point of contact. But I do have a professional work mentor who has been super valuable to me. I got connected with him through my startup. He was a mentor of the business incubator that I'm a part of for my startup, and we connected there, and we kept meeting, and then we became closer. And really, at different important junctures of my life, he's been there to give advice, and I just love that he has such a different perspective than me. He is a lawyer. He used to be at Qualcomm. He's probably like 2 to 3 times my age. So he's got a lot more experience than me, but it's definitely great to have a different perspective. I mean, what I value most about my mentor is that he's very direct, in the sense of like, when I ask a question, or even if I don't ask a question, he's going to tell me what he thinks. And that's something that I appreciate, that he's willing to just be vulnerable with me, give me some advice, and then let me decide whether I want to take it or leave it. And most of the time, it's taking it. So, yeah.
Right, so there are so many mentors that I have already, and I haven't even gone to college yet. So it was very hard for me to pick. But I'm gonna start with one person who helped me get me where I am today. So my dad. So basically, when I was a high schooler in 9th grade, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in STEM. Like, I live in the Bay Area, so it's kind of granted that a lot of children here go into like the STEM industry and major in a lot of different types of engineering and computer science and so much, but I wasn't really passionate about any particular subject. But then my dad, who works in the semiconductor industry, got this flyer for Semi High Tech U, and he told me, you should register and sign up. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's a 3-day program, I'm gonna have to skip school, and missing school for 3 days, like Raj, it's really tough, right? But I'm so glad he pushed me to do it, because look where I am today. I'm so happy to be here. And in addition to my dad, there's one more mentor here at Semi who really helped me get my podcast started, and he always supports my ideas, even though I don't think he's here today. Bryson Goff, thank you so much. I remember meeting you at the Semi High Tech U program, and you're one of my most amazing mentors ever. You really helped support and get my podcast started, so thank you, Bryson.
All right, and so I too have to recognize my parents that are in the semiconductor industry, because they have supported me in many ways as somebody trying to pursue work within the industry, and then also general things. Hey mom, can you check my resume please? I'm applying here. Is this a good cover letter? All that stuff that parents want to help their children with. But I guess outside of the family and more work-related is a person named Michael Gertsch, who is also an intern at TEL. He started there about 1.5 years before I did, and he's on the same team. And so it was difficult for me I wouldn't say difficult, but when I started at TEL, it was mostly remote work, and so I had a bit of a challenge integrating into the team as I didn't really meet anybody, and when I did, they were blank squares. So I felt a bit disconnected, but as I've had more conversations with him throughout the internship, work-related and non-work-related, I've been able to connect with him, and he's helped me a lot better understand the team I work on, as well as share memories, because he's also in Austin too and went to UT, and connect in that way. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Keep getting mentors, right? Okay, a few takeaways and then we'll close up. I think we've heard offer more internships. Everybody should have internships. Let's get the students in to learn about the semiconductor industry. It's going to be about building brand. Get industry on campus. Clearly heard that one too. And I've, in my new role, I've been spending some time on campus, and I'm hearing the same message from deans and professors. I'm also hearing you show up once and then you disappear, and there's you gotta keep coming back. And then I think it's gonna take all of us in this building that's in the industry to build the brand, the microelectronics brand of, at all levels of education is what I'm trying to say. So it's not just university, high school, but we've got to be getting into the middle schools and doing some of the work that Oindree is doing, as well as the elementary students. So this is on all of us to change the reputation of our industry and entice these students to join us. So a couple more things I just want to kind of move over to. We talked about a lot of things that are going to set the stage for this week. There's a talk on mentoring later today at 2:30. There is one about shaping a better world with microelectronics that I think should be very interesting. And then there's several sessions on a day in the life of semiconductor professionals, as well as Meet the Interns, which Tara's going to help us with. And then, of course, there's a session on flash mentoring, and that's just to name a few here. So pick up the program and stop by and join these sessions and learn about how you all can make a difference in our industry and bringing talent in throughout the whole ecosystem. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here and giving us your thoughts.